So as of yesterday afternoon, we took account in this earnings season. Now, it all kind of depends on what you define earnings season to be. We always kind of unofficially kick it off with the banks. We kind of took a look at some of the numbers with regard to the earnings season so far, going back to maybe last month, right? So the tail end of what some call the last one, the beginning part of this one. In any way, there are around 50 so S&P 500 companies that have reported their earnings and held their conference calls and that sort of thing. 54 of those. Of that number, 18 companies, so call that a little more than a third of them, have mentioned tariffs specifically in that word in their conference calls or in their earnings reports.
As
so
a concern.
Call it a little more than a third of the companies so far. So if we extrapolate that, we're going to talk about, 100 plus companies, 130 companies that are going to say this is an issue for us going forward.
Did any of them, like U.S. Steel might mention tariffs, and it would be
positively?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are some out there who could say that there's a positive impact. No, we are measuring that. No, this is.
I thought that was just any mention of tariff.
No. Any mention of tariff, whether it be positive, negative, neutral, whatever it is.
No, that's what I mean, but you're not distinguishing what's positive and what's negative.
But we did kind of take a look at some of the ones that kind of span the spectrum, right? And what they would say, whether that be a positive connotation or a negative connotation with regard to their overall business. Here's what we came up with, for just a sampling of some of these companies. Now, it's really early on, and there's only 18 of them out there right now. But let's take a look at some of these comments, because one of them is a large retailer, big box retailer. This is Costco, where their CFO said, I think everybody feels that tariffs, people smarter than me, don't like them. And it's probably a small net negative. Certainly, whatever negative it is, we can weather it better than others.
So they're not even necessarily using it as
they're
an
not
excuse.
Correct. Or they're not throwing it in some way. They're not blaming it like weather on how it's going to impact our results. Another one, you guys had a transportation segment on. I was listening intently to that one. But take a look at this one, because this is FedEx, just about a month or so ago. Rajesh Subramanian, he's the chief marketing officer, says the uncertainty around the issue and the potential for additional tariffs is affecting the market, and we're beginning to see some of that in the economic activity in China. And we're starting to see it moderate as a result of that.
Now, what I will say is we did just talk to Don Broughton about that. FedEx is one of his favorites. He loves that stock because of anybody related to e-commerce he thinks is going to really have a great time with it. He's watching for any concerns about tariffs. So far, it's still small in the world that he's working.
But we also think of it in terms of just U.S. impact. But he's saying their large market is in China, and if China slows down,
we did the math on how much FedEx does in China and what percentage of it is, covered by those goods, and we multiplied one decimal point by another decimal point, and it came out to this like below 1% effect.
All right, so to that point, Joe, let's talk about another company. This is Grainger. They do office supplies, office solutions. WW Grainger, right? They came out just a few days ago, applying tariff rates of 25%. We estimate our cost will increase by about 2% for the U.S. segment. So to kind of put it in context, 2%, it is still, I mean, you can call it material or immaterial, but it is something, but it is not as hefty, Joe, I guess to your point, as some of the impacts could be that some people view them as. So as we start to progress this earnings season, this is something where throughout the course of it, maybe after a quarter after earnings season's done, halfway through, 3/4 of the way, I'm going to try to continue to update those numbers and see whether those comments start to become a little bit more intense as things kind of go forward. But for right now, it's still early in the earnings season. That's a sampling of what these companies are saying about how tariffs are going to affect them.